Welcome, American truckers. Welcome to Trucking with Old Snapper. And of course, I am Old Snapper. If you're new to the channel, please like and subscribe. We do everything here trucking related. And if you're into trucking and those sort of things, sometimes vlogging, sometimes looking at scenery, you're in the right place. Anyway, I stopped today up here in Pennsylvania, eat a little bit of lunch. I went inside. Normally I bring it back out to my truck, but I felt like socializing a little bit, so I sat down to eat. Sitting in a booth, and in a booth right next to me, right in front of me, was a Middle Eastern gentleman, about my age, our mid-40s. He was sitting there eating. Me and him got to talking. His English was actually pretty good, which I was kind of surprised, because he had told me in their country, when he was growing up, they learned English. It was part of one of their studies or whatever. I was like, oh, that's cool. Pretty neat. And then he kind of laughed. He said, but not no more. I said, why not anymore? He said, well, the future is not America. He said, years ago in our schools, we wanted everybody to learn English because America basically ran the world. He said, but America's on its way down. He said, I don't know who will be the one to rise and take America's spot, but America won't be the superpower America has been in time to come. And that's why in a lot of countries, they don't care anymore whether their kids learn English or don't learn English, because it's not a benefit to them at all. Found that kind of interesting, because he has the same kind of perspective that a lot of us do. You know, a lot of us see our country going in a bad direction. And he sees it too. He knows it. But the conversation with him got even more interesting as it went along. I'm going to tell you all a little bit about it. But he told me, he said, you notice over here, all of us that come from other countries, so it doesn't matter whether it's Europe or the Middle East or India or Africa or wherever, Asia. He said, you can see it in trucking. We do what we want to do. He said, we run out of hours, we pull over on the side of the highway and take a break. You know, we just pull off in wherever and park. It doesn't matter to us. We don't care. You know, your law enforcement over here, your police over here don't want to deal with us. It's too hard to write us a ticket. You know, it's too much work. You know, and it's too much work to try to communicate with us, and we'll just pretend we don't understand until they just go away most of the time. He said, so we do whatever we want. He said, not only do we do whatever we want, but we do whatever we want, and your government pays us to do whatever we want. That's what do you mean by that? He said, we get all kinds of grants and different things to come over here, especially if we're coming over here to go to work like me and you do as truck drivers. So the government claims there's a shortage on truck drivers, and they basically will pay to bring us over here if we're going to enter that industry. He said that's why there's so many of us that own trucks. And he asked me, he said, do you own a truck? I said, no, I don't. He said, I bought a truck when I came here with the money that the government paid me to come here, basically. You know, and I asked him, I said, well, how is the government paying you to come here? And he said it's kind of complicated to explain, but basically it's the way it works. It's through some kind of grants and different things like that. But he bought a truck. He never worked for a company over here. You know, and I told him, I said, well, you know, it kind of sucks that someone who's not from here comes over here and is afforded some opportunity that us who were born here are not attribute to, that we don't have. You know, and he kind of laughed and he said, well, that's because your government sold you out years ago. Your government doesn't care about you. Everything y'all separated from years ago when y'all did y'all's revolution, he couldn't really get into what we did, but when we did our Revolutionary War, basically is what he was talking about. He said, y'all became everything that y'all separated from. And worse. He said, you'd have been better off just staying a part of Europe. He said, y'all are worse off now than you would have been. And he said, it's because y'all are emotional. He kept calling us emotional as Americans. And I kept ignoring the emotional comment because it was kind of pissing me off. But finally I asked him, I said, why do you keep calling us emotional? And he said, because you are emotional. He said, in my country, if you're there illegally, there's only a couple of things that are going to happen. You're either going to prison or we kill you because you're there illegally. He said, in my country, you cannot come there unless you are a benefit to the country. That's the only way you can immigrate to my country. He said, in America, y'all are so emotional and so, I don't know how to explain how he said it. He kind of used some words I didn't understand. But basically that we were so emotional that we open our hearts up and take everybody. He said, and what's happening is you're getting more of the degenerates, more of the people that aren't of use to anybody over here. And it's just going to drain y'all's system. Y'all's taxes are going to continue to rise as y'all pay for these people. And it's just going to continue to drain your system. He had also previously lived in Canada at one time. And he told me, he said, you can't even move to Canada and become a citizen unless you fit a certain criteria. He said that they don't allow it. He said you can't go to Japan and become a citizen unless you fit a certain criteria. He said the only place in the world you can come, no matter what, is the United States. He said, and that's a great idea in theory. He said, but in reality it does not work. It'll drain your country until your country is no more. This country will be a third world country because they're too emotional. He says, you see people coming today. He said, you see us waving our flags. I'm trying to say it like he said it, but my accent sucks. I said, yeah, I noticed y'all normally when you see a group of immigrants now, they're waving the flag of whatever countries they came from. He said, correct. He said, back when your people come over here, y'all were waving American flags. Your ancestors were. They were here to be Americans. He said, the people coming today are not here to be Americans. They're here to use it, exploit it, and when it all comes down, we go home. We're not going to be here to live in the streets. We're not going to be here for all the robbing and looting and killing that's going to happen as people try to survive. He said, we won't be here for that. We go home. And he kept saying you. He said, you will be here for that, not us. You will be here for the mess that's created, not us. He said, and you don't benefit at all from the mess that's being created. Your government does. The politicians do. They sold y'all out many years ago. And he kept saying in the 70s. I don't know what happened in the 70s. But he kept saying we were sold out in the 70s. But I sat here having this conversation with him, and some of it I liked to hear, and some of it I didn't. But I was trying to be open-minded and listen to this gentleman speak. And some of it pissed me off, and some of it didn't. But, I came back out here to my truck, sat here thinking about it, and I thought, you know what? Make a video about it. I'm going to talk about this. This is something we probably all need to talk about. Probably the one thing he said that made me so upset more than anything was he said, we do whatever we want here, and we will continue to do whatever we want here. He said, look, this is the only place in the world you can go and bring your culture and force that country to adhere to your culture. He said, you come to our country, we're not adhering to your culture. You either adhere to ours or you leave. You need us. We don't need you. He said, America is the only place that does that. He said, y'all are killing yourselves, basically. That really pissed me off when he said that. Really pissed me off when he said whenever they were done using it, they would go home. But when I was done eating, I stood up, I shook his hand, and he stood up, showed me some respect. And I was thankful that he was open enough to at least talk to me. And he kind of smiled, and I smiled and said, well, sucks that we kind of got to eat crow. We can't do anything about it, you know, but it is the way it is. It is what it is. He said, yeah. He said, y'all can't do anything about it. It's too late. And I get to looking around and walking back out here to my truck, and I'm paying more attention than normal, you know, and as I'm walking through the store part, coming back out, I can hear several different languages being spoken. And I realize there's probably more non-Americans around me than Americans. And I just thought that was wild. I wasn't going to share it. I was going to keep it to myself. I don't like putting politics on my channel. But he kind of talked about trucking whenever he talked about how they just park wherever they want to park. And they pretty much do whatever they want to do out here with very little repercussion. You know, and I have noticed in recent days, trucks just run out of hours. They just pull over on the side of the road, even in the middle of the day when there's plenty of parking. They'll just pull over on the side of the road wherever they ran out of hours at. You know, and I don't see law enforcement really enforcing it or messing with them or anything like that. But I tell you what, as an American, law enforcement will jack with you in a quick second. I guess they don't have no problem spelling our names. They ain't got no problems communicating with us. And I guess even the law enforcement's gotten lazy, so it's too much work to try to communicate with them or to try to write them a ticket for anything, because you'll have to spell their name out, and they'll probably just change the license over to somebody else. You know, but they got a pretty good deal. I can't hate on that. And all I can say is we did it to ourselves. I hope all of y'all have a great day. Stay safe. Stay out of trouble. Remember, we are all brothers and sisters out here, even the ones from another country. And let's keep trucking.